So I recently played and beat Lords of the Fallen on the PC, and I thought I would make a review of the game. I bought the game back in 2023 but didn't get to play it and beat it until recently. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a professional gamer or an expert or anything like that. I'm just an average guy who likes to play video games, and this is my review based on my personal experience with the game. So Lords of the Fallen originally came out in 2014 but was later remade in 2023, which is the version I played and will be reviewing. The game also recently went through a massive update that changed a few things about how the game is played. It was developed and published by Hexworks and CI Games SE, and this version was officially released on October 13th, 2023. This is an adventure and action role-playing game, similar to games like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, or Nioh. FYI, I've never played Dark Souls, but I have played games like Elden Ring, Sekiro, Bloodborne, and Wukong, and Lords of the Fallen kind of gives off a similar type of vibe, although it seems in my opinion to draw a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls, especially in terms of setting. Lords of the Fallen, like many other games of this genre, contain difficult boss battles, challenging combat, deep lore, and satisfying victories. You have a character that you build from the ground up, and throughout the game you fight tough enemies, level up your character, and upgrade your weapons and armor. After the version 2 update they did, the game had significantly improved in many ways. Luckily, I didn't play the game until recently, but I heard there were many issues with the game before this update, including the controls and the final boss and things like that. Once the update happened, I heard a lot more people saying positive things about the game. So the story pretty much goes like this. You're a warrior in this land called Mornstead, and long ago this place used to be ruled by an evil deity named Adir. He was horrible and evil, so he got banished, but now he's trying to come back and take over again, so it's up to you to stop him from returning. You navigate this medieval fantasy-like world and carry a lamp that can take you from the living world to the not-so-living world. There are these things called beacons that Adir has corrupted in an attempt to free himself from his shackles. Throughout the game you're traveling to different areas, fighting difficult enemies, and cleansing the corrupted beacons since this will stop Adir from returning. There's a whole lot more to the story, of course, but this is a quick summary for context. The game has a mixed setting. Some areas are dark and creepy and others are more light and adventurous, but it's generally a medieval fantasy type of atmosphere. Crossing between the dead and living worlds also makes a difference in the way you see the map and the vibe the area gives. I think they did a good job creating a good atmosphere for a lot of these areas. Some areas are just weirder than others. The maps are decent, and for the most part you can explore the areas without too much hassle. Some of the enemies get annoying and some of the bosses can be difficult, but overall I'd say it's fair. The controls can be a little overwhelming if you're new to these types of games, but if you've played Souls-like games before, it's pretty easy to get the hang of. I tend to do strength builds, so I don't use a lot of the magic. The weapon options are pretty good. You got your hammers, big swords, little swords, bows and arrows, things like that. I actually like the poison javelins myself, and to me, poison weapons were very crucial in a lot of the boss fights here. Once you understand the controls, the actual combat is easy enough to get down, and the pairing is better than other games that I've played. Roaming around is relatively easy, but I wish the jumping was a little better. The combat and gameplay to me felt similar to games like Elden Ring, and while I do like it, it's not exactly my personal favorite. For me, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice was by far the best combat system for me. I just found it to be way more fluid. But while the combat in Lords of the Fallen isn't my favorite, it's still decent and fair to me. The pairing in Lords of the Fallen is pretty decent in my opinion, but throughout the game I would dodge attacks more than parry. There are many different types of weapons to find and choose from. I personally like two-handed weapons like big swords or hammers. There's a decent variety of enemies in the game, but there's also a good balance of exploration that the game encourages. It's nice to walk around the areas and find new items, and there are side quests you can do along the way. One of the cool things about this game is how switching to the Umbral world reveals all these hidden paths you can explore. You get to this world by either activating it via the lamp or by dying in the living world. You can also use the lamp to sort of temporarily reveal the Umbral world in order to look around, which does come in handy. Another cool feature is that you can use a vestige seed to plant a checkpoint in certain locations, and this becomes very useful for some of these bosses. One thing I always hated with games like these were the annoying paths to get to the bosses after they kill you, so having this feature is nice. The visuals in this game are pretty good. There's plenty of spots where you can stop and appreciate the design of the game. The environments are all nicely designed in my opinion. Even the boss arenas were overall decent as far as visual appeal and atmosphere. I didn't get too in-depth with the character design, but I did like the way I ended up making my build. Some of the armor pieces look really cool. The design and variety of the bosses in the game is definitely something I look for, and I thought the boss design in Lords of the Fallen was really good. My personal favorite was the Unbroken Promise. As frustrating as that fight was, it was still the one that I enjoyed the most. The soundtrack of the game is decent and does a good job of complementing the game, but nothing really stood out for me. The sound effects to me are pretty decent as well, and as for the voice acting, I think it's done well, but again, nothing really stood out for me here. I've heard that there were quite a few issues with the game when it first came out as far as like performance, but after the updates and all that, it appears to work a lot better. I personally didn't have any issues with like bugs or glitches or anything like that when I played. I think as long as you're running a standard gaming system, the issues should be minimal, if anything. It appears they've corrected a lot of the bugs the game first had. The length of the game is good, the story is decent, there's plenty of areas and paths to explore and plenty of enemies to fight. The bosses can be challenging, but to me they're a lot more fair than the other games I've played. One thing to keep in mind is that there are multiple endings to this game. You don't exactly need to cleanse the beacons throughout the game. I believe there are 3 endings, although the only one I've done so far is the Adir ending, which I think is the one most people do. There's also a good amount of side quests throughout the game that can be very rewarding. Now, because of things like multiple endings, building up your character, New Game Plus, and even all the areas and hidden paths, the game is definitely replayable, especially if you enjoy the games with this type of setting and story. I could see myself replaying the game sometime, but I just don't see it happening anytime soon just because I have other games and videos I want to do. As I've said throughout the video, this game has a very similar vibe to Dark Souls or Elden Ring. Throughout the game you see the Dark Souls influence. Even I, as someone who's never played Dark Souls, can see how much its influence carries over to this game. Now, this isn't to say that Lords of the Fallen is an exact copy of Dark Souls, but by the looks of things, it does have a similar setting and fighting system. Maybe those of you who've played Dark Souls can comment your thoughts below, and maybe one day I'll play the Dark Souls series. I would say this game is enjoyable as a whole, but there are many frustrating parts to the game. I could definitely see why some players could not finish the game, but games of this genre do tend to be more difficult. Players who know and have played this genre of game I think would at least get some enjoyment. While I can recommend playing the game and trying it out, and while I definitely had fun playing this, I don't think it's worth spending too much money on. At first I would say this is the kind of game you get when there's like a Steam sale or something like that, but now I believe it's $30, which I feel is a decent price. Out of 10, I personally give it a 7.5. Good combat, awesome character design, some fun boss fights, but to me parts of the story are a little dry and some of the areas can get really irritating, especially when they don't make it clear on where you're supposed to go. Another thing I can't stand is when they overcrowd a bunch of enemies in one spot, which happens in a lot of games actually. Overall though, I say it's a decent game and a fun experience, and from the looks of things the developers actually care about their fans' input. If they do make a second Lords of the Fallen, I will definitely consider getting it. If you have any thoughts about Lords of the Fallen, please drop them in the comments below. That's all I have for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time.